everyone, and welcome to a new podcast from Wake Up Theater. We are committed to using the captivating and transformative power of live performance to shed light on critical environmental, social, and political issues. Today, we will chat with Susan Voight, one of the founding members of WOOT. Susan is acknowledged as a gifted actor and has taken on the challenge as director to bring Nobel Prize-winning Harold Pinter's play, The Dumb Waiter, to the stage at Pepper Theater this November. For details and how to reserve tickets, see the links provided in the accompanying text. With that, let's get started.
Good evening, Susan. Thanks so much for taking the time to chat with me this evening. It's been a real privilege having you be part of our upcoming production of Harold Pinter's play, The Dumb Waiter.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me.
I suppose we should immediately acknowledge the elephant in the room, namely that you and I are long-term partners who recently celebrated our 34th wedding anniversary. As if learning how to be a successful director weren't hard enough, your job included directing me, your husband, in one of the key roles. What has that been like?
Well, I could do the cop-out answer of interesting. No, I would say to a large extent, it's been really fun working on this project with you, going into really deep details about the characters, about the play itself, about the meaning of the play, about the subtleties of the subtext and the changes in the relationship. At the same time, it's been a challenge because sometimes you want to talk about the play when I want to mentally take a break.
Well, I know that I've tried very hard to respect my role as actor and you as director. Good. So you've been bringing stories, inspiration, and drama in the form of dance to audiences from a very young age. Tell us a little bit about your earlier journey there.
When you say from a very young age, you're right. My mother was exhausted and I was a handful. So our family doctor said to my mother, you know, you need a rest. Why don't you enroll her in a preschool program? I know of one going on at the local dance school. So from the age of 3, I was enrolled in a program that ran from 9 o'clock in the morning, or 9:30, I think it was, until 12:30, which gave my mother 3 hours of blissful peace. But the teacher was amazing because she had structured the day so that we had short dance classes, probably 35 minutes. We always had ballet, we had tap, and then we had something called character dance, which really ends up being what I think we'd call ethnic dance, except that within the world of ballet, those ethnic dances were always used to portray the specific type of character in the dance. In between those dance classes, though, we had story time, we had art time, we painted, we made Christmas decorations, just everything. And for me, it was the most wonderful place in the world. So when I started school, which I also loved, but I didn't want to lose the dance school. So I started into her regular dance program. By high school, I was probably dancing 4 or 5 hours a day after school was out, and started with the dance major at the University of Washington. And then a back injury kind of ended that for me. So, and at the time, the doctor actually said I would not or should not ever dance again. A few years later, as my back got stronger and I was doing yoga, and I said, well, look, if I can do all these yoga things, I can dance. And so I got re-involved with the local company, first just in their classes and then gradually in their company.
And then you moved into modern dance from classical ballet. Want to say a little bit about that?
Yeah, that actually happened my first year of college. I mean, I was training as a classical ballet dancer. That was my love. On our first day, we were informed, because I'd only signed up for the ballet classes, but we were informed that everyone who was a dance major had to take both the modern curriculum and the ballet curriculum. I was horrified initially. But then I went to my first class the modern vocabulary, especially I was being trained in Martha Graham technique at that point, so profoundly spoke to my soul that I think I decided on that first day that I was a modern dancer. I still took the classical curriculum, you had to, but I knew in my heart that I was a modern dancer. So after that, that was my focus.
Well, I know you've said to me many times that dance is a form of communication and language, just as, we're speaking in English now, but it's the language of movement.
When I was in college, I found a lapel button that had a picture of Snoopy dancing, and he has a little thinking cloud above his head that says, "For those of us with true understanding, dancing is the only pure art form." I immediately bought it. I wore it constantly, much to the annoyance and in fact, outrage of my actor friends and my painter friends and all the other artistic people that I knew. And I knew that it wasn't any different than any of the arts, except that you use your body with nothing else. You don't use a musical instrument. You don't have a script. And until the days of recording, once the dance was done, it was gone. It was totally ephemeral. I think maybe I need to back up before I can really answer your question. The thing about dance, in order to perform, you have to know your movements 100%. It has to be so much so that you couldn't possibly do anything else except that movement at that point in time. Because when you're performing, you cannot think about, oh, I have a triple pirouette coming up in 3 steps. I better get ready mentally for that. Because if you do, you can't do the step that you're on right at that moment. If the triple pirouette is a failure, you can't be worrying about it. You have to be purely in the moment that you're dancing. Many years later, when I started doing meditation, what I realized is that to be that present in your dance is a form of meditation. And so it takes you to the very core of who you are.
It sounds very, very similar to the advice that acting coaches and teachers tell us about playing our speaking roles on the stage. You've got to be in this moment, not thinking about what's coming.
Actually, that's been one of the things that I think I've tried to share with both you and Jai, is that you can't be worried about how is it coming across to the audience. Did I say that line right? Oh, I forgot a line. I need to go back. You've got to be the character. But the only way to be the character is to have exercised the discipline of learning the lines, exercised the discipline of asking all the questions about who is this person? What matters to them? Why does that matter to them? Why is this thing annoying to them? Why is this thing so important to them? Why aren't they noticing the other person's distress? But all of that takes place beforehand, because then when you're actually performing it, you have to be able to say that line as if it's never been said before. You have to be able to hear the other character's response as if that's totally new to you. Why on earth did he say a thing like that? How dare he?
Sure. Well, what you referred to before about your movement and knowing where your space was and being very clear about that reminds me of a story that you shared with me that to this day amazes me, that you went out on the stage for a routine that you had practiced and somebody had decided to put I don't know, it was a tree, a Christmas tree or something. And you said, no, that can't go there because I'm going to hit it. You knew your place on that stage at every minute of your routine so that you could look at that and say, no, that won't go there. That seems almost impossible to me.
I don't think most people appreciate just how much repetition there is in dance. One day I tried to calculate how many pliés I'd probably done.
Tell us what a plié is for those who don't know.
It's very simply bending your legs and straightening them again.
Okay.
But it doesn't matter whether you're doing ballet, modern, tap, ethnic, whatever. It is a part of every form of dance because bending the knee and then straightening is what gives you your impulse. If you're going to jump up, if you're going to go up on point, if you're going to turn, it's that bending and stretching that the muscles of the leg propels you into your next move. So it's the most basic move. When you're doing a performance, you don't just do a plie by itself. It's always as preparation. But in the classroom, you do, well, let's take a classical ballet class. You do at least 8 repetitions in each of 5 positions at the bar. And then you do 8 repetitions of each of the 5 positions in the center of the floor. And that's not even counting all the times that you do it as a preparation for a turn, as a preparation for an arabesque, as a preparation for a jump. So I'm somewhere up in the hundreds of thousands of pliés in my life. And yet when I was 25 years old and taking a master class with the director of the San Francisco Ballet, he said something to the class that made almost everyone in the class totally surprised because we'd never thought of it that way. But he said, you have to do this plie as if you've never done a plie before. You have to pay attention to the muscles. You have to know which muscles are relaxing, which muscles are contracting, because only in that way will it be fresh when you do it in a performance. That one single instruction probably advanced my skill level from average to really being one of the top dancers in our group. I'm not sure everybody took it to heart as much as I did, but it really became, if I'm doing this movement, how can I make it new? How can I make it fresh? How can I make it real?
Boy, it sounds almost identical to the lessons that acting instructors give us over and over again about performance on the stage. You've got to do it as if you've never done it before.
Mm-hmm.
What else have you learned personally, would you say, from being a dancer and an amateur actor? How has it made a difference for you in your personal life?
Well, I think when you learn how to be present in the moment when you're dancing or when you're acting, that you can then do that when you're not acting. I think it allows you to be more awake, more alive, more present to what's going on around you.
Wonderful. About storytelling, there's been movies and a lot of videos that talk about dance as a way of telling a story through movement. So clearly there's some important similarities and things that we can learn from the parallel nature of dance and stage acting in terms of communicating a story, communicating a character. What other similarities, what differences occur to you as you think about those parallel artistic paths, if you will?
I would like to broaden it out because I think, as you know, I also paint. I think the primary reason for art is to communicate honestly and authentically. So I think that in dancing, whether you're telling a story or whether you're doing a completely abstract modern piece with no story, you're still communicating. And in order for the communication to be received, it has to be authentic. So when we're working on the play, one of the things I've stopped both of you from time to time and I go, what are you doing with your body? Because sadly for men, you've never been trained, you've never been allowed to really live in your body. You're supposed to live in your head. But we read body language. So the actor's body needs to be as alive as the dancer's, even if not as well trained, even if not as flexible, but it still has to be alive to the subtleties of what you're feeling. So I think some of the method acting techniques that I know we've both done in workshops and stuff are critically important because what they do is they say, think back to a time when you had that emotion, when you were in that kind of situation. And by going back there, hopefully you can feel in your body what you felt when somebody just yelled at me for something that I didn't do, that it wasn't my fault. They've got the wrong person. Your whole body reacts, or should. And so being in touch with that, being in touch with your body is critical.
Clearly. You've come to acting and brought all of this skill, this experience, this awareness What could someone like me, for example, I mean, obviously I'm at an age where I'm not going to be doing any dancing or ballet classes, but if I want to be a better actor, a more convincing actor, as you were describing, what kinds of things might I do in exploring dance and movement?
It's hard to explain without doing is my problem. I believe that stretching is one of the things that will keep us all alive longer. Yoga is probably beyond the place that most people who are in their 70s want to go. Not all, though. And certainly if your body is still flexible enough, then that's a great way to do it. But when you get up in the morning, stretch, bend over as far as you can, reach up as far as you can. When you go for a walk, stop somewhere and stretch out your legs. But then beyond that, I think it's more being aware of. So you're sitting in your chair in the evening reading a book and you realize you're tired. And then just sit there for a moment and say, what was it that made me realize I'm tired? Where am I feeling it? How am I sitting? What am I doing right now?
So connecting with your body, so to speak.
Yeah. And just at odd moments throughout the day, when I'm walking, sometimes I will suddenly pick up on a sub-rhythm to my walk. So the walk is just a steady beat. And then I'll notice that there's an external sound that is making a counterpoint to that. And I will be mentally incorporating that into the walk, even though I'm still just walking. Sometimes I will tap my finger on my leg as I walk as in a counterpoint, because rhythm is so critical. Being able to find a pace, whether you're talking or whether you're dancing or whether you're chewing, you almost always are doing it in a rhythm.
Stage performance is just being on the beat anyway, isn't it?
Yeah. And I think one of the things that we've had a lot of fun exploring in this particular thing is that those beats are so critical in allowing there to be breathing room for the change of thoughts that are going on and the change of emotional level in one of the characters.
Fascinating. So now with this play, you stepped away from the stage role and into the director's shoes. What's been challenges and hopefully rewards for you, especially working with such a demanding play like The Dumb Waiter?
Well, my biggest challenge is remembering to ask questions to help the character find, or to help the actor find the character, rather than making suggestions. I mean, I think it's appropriate at times for me to suggest, especially if one of you gets stuck on a particular interpretation of a line. Well, what about this way? What about that way? But I think that the question, what's this character feeling when he says that? Why is that coming up now? Is probably much more fruitful for you because it forces you to go deeper into your own character.
And make the response my own.
Yeah. Now, not only to make it your own, but I think you find out more about your character in answering that question. So you discover character, and only after you discover it can you make it your own. And then you allow the character to emerge and really take over your body on the stage. I think that's probably the hardest part of acting, is that there are two of you occupying the same space, you and the character you're playing.
Yes. So rewards, things that you hadn't expected that have really been worthwhile for you and stepping into the director's role?
Well, I think, especially with this play, just having the opportunity to dig that deeply into the play. Pinter is a master. There is not a line in there that isn't there for a reason. I know the other day I was reading yet another review or another article about this particular play, and the author of that particular article made the comment that there is one line in the play that takes place within the first 7 or 8 minutes that sets the stage for the entire rest of the play. And I'd never really thought of it that way. And then I looked at that line again and I went, oh, there's so much more there than I saw. So that this growing awareness of the craft that Pinter used in sculpting this beautiful little play. I mean, it's one act. So there's that part of it. Then there's been the real joy of working with you and Jai, helping both of you explore your character, overcome whatever needs to be overcome at the moment so that we can get on. And then I have to say that the support that I've gotten from many people who trust me, who believe in me, who keep saying you can do it, even when I wasn't sure that I could, that's been a real gift.
Sure. Well, anything else that you want to add about yourself and why you'd like to have lots of people come and see the play?
Well, I think I said the most important thing already. The play is a masterpiece. Again, reading yet a different article on the same day about this particular play, another author wrote that this particular play, The Dumbwaiter, was probably Pinter's best play. It's one of his first 4 plays. And yet he said within this one play, everything that Pinter does in later plays, he shows us how to do it here. So it's just incredibly well sculpted. The message behind the play is so powerful. It's a very moving play. Pinter does extremely well what I think we've forgotten, that a lot of times, if you hear about a calamity, a war, terrorists, it's really easy to be upset about it in the moment, to be concerned about it in the moment. But if there's nothing to make it personal, then your involvement with it, your understanding, your compassion, all of those kind of dwindle away. And what Pinter tried to do, I think, in every play he wrote, was really to find an incredibly personal, intimate story about very, very mundane people in very seemingly ordinary situations, at least at the beginning. And then use that as an allegory for the things that are facing all of us so that we can look at it from a perspective that we can really take into our hearts.
Sure. Well, I certainly have to say back to you that it has been an amazing experience working with you and benefiting from your very careful insights and help and guidance. So thank you so much. And see you and see hopefully all of the people who are listening to this on the theater stage at Pepper, 15 to 18 of November. It's close now, isn't it?
Very close.
All right. Thank you, Ken.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
That's it for today. Please join us one evening this November to see The Dumb Waiter by Harold Pinter, a performance permitted by special arrangement with Concord Theatricals GmbH on behalf of Samuel French Ltd. Details are in the text below, and you can reserve your tickets by simply clicking on the QR code. Wake Up Theater is dedicated to creating thought-provoking theatrical experiences that encourage audiences to consider their role in shaping a more just, sustainable, and compassionate world. Through compelling narratives, evocative visuals, and masterful storytelling, we aim to foster dialogue, inspire empathy, and promote meaningful change. Comments and suggestions are always welcome. And please like our webpage to be informed of future podcasts. Have a great day and evening, and until next time.